Testing, 1, 2, 3. A, B, C. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Hey guys, Jamie Buchanan here from Visual Perfection and Dirty Old Cars. Now today we're gonna actually be going into paint gauge and measuring the paint on your car. And you would say, well, who needs those? And why do we need that? So we're actually gonna show you today all about a paint gauge. So we're gonna be using the Next PTG, right? Now look, when we go to using this thing, like first you have to download the app on your phone so you can take a measurement. Then what we do is we actually calibrate it. We make sure it's calibrated. Then we set the units to mils of paint, and then we start measuring the paint. For the people that are going to be using the paint gauge, now look, some do-it-yourselfers like to do it. Some people at home that are doing it professionally at home, or definitely if you're a professional, you should be using a paint gauge. Now look, I grew up in the era where we could look at the paint, feel the paint, tell you how much was on the car, and then sometimes we didn't do a good job and we burnt through, right? But now we actually go to the paint thickness gauge so we can measure, especially when you got an expensive car like we're working on today, you actually want to gauge the paint. The reason you would use a paint gauge is if you're gonna be doing some pretty heavy compounding, maybe you have some scratches in the car and you notice that maybe the car's been a repaint and you're not really for sure how thick the paint is. Or if you're doing a one-step polish, that's not really necessary unless you just think that you can see through the paint, and sometimes you can, depending on if it was a repaint or not. If you have a lot of etching in the paint, if you have where the clear looks like it's actually dying, you may want to gauge in that area as well. But it's one of those case-by-cases where you look at the car and you tell what kind of car it is, and then you say, you know what, just to be safe, I'm gonna pull out the paint thickness gauge here. Here we have the paint gauge, and then we have the app pulled up on my phone. So what we do is we sit this thing down ever so gently. I can hear it read on my phone. As you can see, it says 8.64, 8.65, and that's mils of paint. That is actually very, very good. That means that the paint is very thick. Now look, this is a single stage paint car. So that means that there is a lot of paint on this car. It's not divided between the paint and between the clear. So this paint, again, 8.64. Wow, just moving over 2 or 3 inches, it's 9.4, 8.2, 7.4, 7.3. So you can see, it just depends on how the man sprayed the car. So you're probably wondering, how do you take and actually gauge this elephant here, right? So it's kind of the same as you eat an elephant, right? It's just one step at a time, and you look for the problem areas. Most of the problem areas are gonna be around your edges, close to the lips of the windows, maybe on the bottom panels, because you know, not a lot of people like to bend, so instead of shooting it from here, you should squat down and shoot. So we're really gonna be taking a very, very good amount of readings to see how well this thing has been painted. Starting at the front quarter, I have 10.2, 9.2. Wow, there's 16.2. So I want you to look, there's a 10 inches by 6 inch distance here, and it went from 10 to 9 to 16. And it went all the way down 6 inches more, it's down to 6. That lets you know that the painter stood upright and he didn't squat too much. Let's see the bottom. 8.5, 9.3, 9.6, 10, 8.5, 11, 12.1. So as we can see, it's a pretty good variation. I mean, from 10 to 12 to 16 to 8. Look, if you get down in the 4 to 5 range, you're getting pretty temperamental, right? And you gotta know what you're gonna do and how far you can go with it, because that's not terribly dangerous, but it's getting into the yellow zone, right? Of, hey, look, I gotta be real careful here. So we're gonna keep moving on, and we're gonna do a few more readings back here. So like that's 8.5. 8.5. 12. 6. See, you're close to a body line. So you're at 6 mils. So now you're getting real chintzy down here. You're getting real close, right? 7. 4.9. 16. So look here. 4.9 to 16. That is an amazing difference. So in a single stage, right, you got to take all the levels that are there and you kind of divide that out, right? And we're not really for sure what's what, but we know it's a single stage paint, so it's 1, okay? You got to factor in the primer, but you factor in the paint, that's 1, right? So at 4, you're very, very close. Like 4.9, so it's 5. So, but I said in the beginning, 4 to 5. So you got to have to really be careful. You're not going to do a whole lot of sanding or heavy cutting. 6, 10, 9. So as you can see, this thing fluctuates. It really fluctuates. A lot of times where the painter may stop, you know, it kind of loads up in that spot. Maybe that's where he started off with the gun after he had to go back and fill the cup back up. You're not really for sure. That's the biggest reason why you want to go in and gauge the paint, especially you're working on a $60,000, $80,000 car like this. You don't want to just say, oh, let's just throw the buffer at it. You got to really be careful, because what happens when you ruin the authenticity of the car, or you can't get it painted, or you don't have the connections to make it right? Now you're in trouble as a professional detailer. So as you can see with the numbers on the board, the car's in very good shape. I'm just gonna kind of finish out. I'm gonna go around and finish it up so I can go ahead and get to cutting on this thing. So as you can see, we can tell the car has been repainted. There's no question. The age, how the car looks. But another big thing that you can tell is it's been painted by a professional painter in a booth, because it is uneven. Most of your factory paints are going to be more even and more smooth just because it's been programmed into a machine and the machine does all the work. Meaning that your numbers are going to be much more consistent from the factory than it is going to be from your professional painter. Guys, as you can see, using a paint gauge is pretty effortless and easy. It does take a little time, but it'll save you a whole lot of money and a whole lot of time, and maybe some butt chewing later. And so tell you the story. So when I was younger, and I know that, you know, it doesn't look like I could have a time to say that I'm younger, right? But I was younger and I was just getting started. I was doing a white Toyota truck. It was in the 90s, okay, which is a long time ago. This thing was starting to chalk up, so I'm thinking, you know, I'm just gonna polish this thing out and I'm gonna bring it to a shine. Looks like it has enough paint on it, let's just go to buffing. Went to buffing and polishing on the door, and the door had been repainted. So I actually went through the door where the body line was in an old Tacoma truck. So I actually had to get the door repainted, which most of the customers know me in town, so it was okay, right? But if I would have done my due diligence and actually gauged the paint, then I would have known to either A, take it easy, or B, don't take the job. So you really need to be gauging the paint if you're uncertain, if you think that maybe the vehicle has been repainted at some point. If it's an expensive car, you definitely 100% need to do it, just to be sure to protect your customer and to protect you and your company. So definitely would say that you need to be paint gauging when you are doing cars in your shop, or even if you're do-it-yourselfer at your house, but you get something that really needs to be paint gauged. Please be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what kind of machine you use, maybe your process. Look, we always read them. We always do our best to get back to you, and who knows, we might even make a video on what you've said, right? Also, be sure that you like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends, show everybody, because there's a lot more content to come.